Hello everybody. Welcome to part 2 of our video regarding Canon series cameras. We are discussing issues, solutions, problems, parts availability, and general reliability of these cameras. Again, this just goes based on my personal experiences with these models. It's not my opinion, but rather it is my experience with what we're discussing right now. And we are on Canon A-1. All right, so this camera right here is a great camera. It's probably the best camera that Canon made for the manual 35mm SLR cameras. It's sophisticated, it is full of options and features, and with that it has a slew of issues that could potentially develop from the complexity of the camera. So in this video we will discuss some of these most obvious issues. In part 1 of this video, I've discussed the Canon A-1. So these are very similar cameras in terms of some of the components, design, and structure. So for example, the release magnet and the shutter magnets are identical. Even the shutter mechanism is pretty much the same. The difference is that Canon A-1 uses pretty much a metal unit, okay, all throughout, as well as all of the gears, whereas the Canon AE1 as well as the program, they use a lot of plastic gears. The design is the same, but the material is slightly different. Hence, mechanically, this camera, in my opinion, is superior to its cousins AE1 and the program in terms of the mechanical part of it. In terms of the electronics, we will touch base with it shortly. Now, all the things that we've talked about, release and shutter magnets in the previous videos, are still applicable to this camera, okay, to this model A1. So if you see that your shutter speeds are not holding, or your release doesn't work, chances are it could be respectively either shutter magnet or it could be a release magnet. So something to think about that too. All right, another thing that could cause the shutter speeds not to work. So let's say you have your camera set on any speed, right? And you look into the viewfinder and you notice that the shutter speed in the viewfinder doesn't coincide with the selected dial speed. That's a problem, okay? It has to match. And when you release the camera, it either locks up the entire module, okay, the module, by module I mean the camera, or it just produces a completely random speed. And then you'll just remove the battery and resets the camera, because it's an electronic camera. It just puts everything into a reset mode. So the culprit in this case is actually this dial itself. This dial comes with two components. It's a dial itself, as well as the metal contacts that are attached to this dial. All right, so I'll go ahead and demonstrate how this dial looks. So here's our dial, okay, and it's the same exact dial that is right underneath. If I flip it over, you'll see that there are contacts, metal contacts. These contacts are basically going over the sensor, and that is telling the camera which shutter speeds to select based on the position of the contacts. And what happens is these contacts are pressure attached by these two plastic pressure points, okay? There's no glue here, nothing. It's just those two plastic tabs that are squashed. And here's an example of the one without the contact, the one that we replaced previously. And see contacts, no contact. So what ends up happening is that these tabs break off due to the fact that the camera is old, and also the fatigue factor, because these contacts are always under pressure against that plate. And since that's the case, I mean, these plastic tabs just break off and the contact just floats inside the chamber. And sometimes it makes a contact and throws out like a random speed, and sometimes it doesn't, and then locks up the camera. So the solution is really simple. Either replace this entire assembly here with new contacts, or if you have no choice, you can reattach those floating contacts. Hopefully you can still find them. They're not, you know, somewhere inside the camera. Reattach them properly to the dial itself. Now you want to be careful about reattachment, because you want to be right on the point where the old contacts were placed. If it's slightly deviated from the location of where they used to sit, your readings will be skewed, which means that you know, if it's set to 1/1000th of a second, it may read 1/500th of a second, or may not read at all in the viewfinder. So you want to be very careful where you place them and line them up exactly to the old, to where the old posts, plastic posts, used to be. All right, so that's, again, it's becoming more and more common as these cameras age. Obviously it makes sense. It's plastic, it wears out, and it breaks. Eventually it's probably gonna happen with most of them, but again, the time will tell. Okay, so on to the next issue. So we're going to concentrate on this area right here, and this is our mode selector. It selects the camera being on, then locked, then you got a self timer. Okay, it's got 4 positions. A lot of times what you'll notice is that when you try to select a specific speed, this, you know, lever has no tension whatsoever. It just rotates without any available setting, like it's either loose or broken. And obviously your camera is not operating because it's not able to take it from the lock perhaps to an on position, or if you do a self timer, it's not able to get it to the self timer mode. So what happens is that this lever is attached to a plastic mode selector tab. Okay, and those tabs, and I will go ahead and show you here. So this is basically the actual dial contact assembly. It has 2 plastic tabs where this selector lever sits on top, and due to the age or corrosion or, you know, dirt getting in there, if these tabs break off, you obviously have no tension and it's not able to rotate and select the correct setting. Basically the solution is a twofold solution. The best option, because it's a high tension design device, okay, need to replace it. If we have a junker, which it's a highly replaceable or sought after device, and a part, it's hard to come by. If we have it, the best option is to replace it. If we don't have it, then there's a way to you know, repair it with metal posts, but it's a long process, very laborious, and we try to stay away from it as much as possible, and just better replacing it. Now the same goes for this double exposure lever right here. Okay, as you can see, it snaps nicely left and right, okay, in and out as you release. But sometimes it does the same exact thing, it just free floats. Why? Because there's another one okay, that has the same tabs, but it attaches itself to a different lever. So imagine that this contact and this contact, they're basically sitting one on top of the other with two tabs here, two tabs there, pardon me. And as such, they are rotating left and right, left and right. If either one of these tabs are broken, obviously the lever is not going to be engaging the setting. Okay, so that is the problem. It's not a very common issue, but it's becoming more and more common, and I start seeing them more and more with some of the cameras. All right, so on to the next scenario. And this is obviously, you see it here, and I've discussed it with a previous model. It's missing a battery door. It's the same battery door design as with pretty much all of the Canon A series. Okay, so it's what we do is we use an aftermarket battery door to replace it with. And as you can see, it's a common point of failure. All right. So another thing that you might notice sometimes in your camera, because this is a very sophisticated camera for its age, highly electronic. A lot of times you will notice that there could be garbled text instead of the valid number sequences inside the viewfinder when you select the dial. And instead of 1,000, it could just show you gibberish. Okay. Possible cause to that could be defective IC that controls the reading of the shutter speed, okay, or the selection. Or it could just be that there's the flex board that comes from this IC and attaches itself to this section here, and it's pressure held by a contact holder. Okay, it's a rubberized contact holder with two screws, and I've shown you that the disassembly of that module when I had my previous videos explaining the operation and the overhaul of the Canon A-1. If that pressure plate can be removed and the contact can be cleaned with isopropyl alcohol, that could be the solution. It's just a dry contact. One of those 7-8 contacts are just not making a good pressure to the board, and that will exhibit the corruption inside the viewfinder. So I suggest that this could potentially be the problem. If that doesn't solve it though, the problem has to be with this IC. And if that's the case, there is really not much else we can do about it, because we don't have circuit boards or ICs for them, and those that we do have, I don't like swapping this electronics from one camera to another one. It's not like it's a mechanical item that you can see it'll work. I don't want to take a chance with electronics swapping from unknown board to another board. It doesn't always properly adapt. So in cases like that, we'll basically return the camera to the customer as is, unrepaired. Okay, and the last thing I wanted to discuss with this specific model, which is a relatively common problem, is the following symptoms. So you basically advance your shutter, winding lever, then you release it, the camera doesn't release. So it shows you your readings in the meter. In the viewfinder, the meter readings are being shown correctly, but there is really no release. Okay, so possibly, again, as I discussed, it could be a release magnet on the bottom. But as I previously mentioned, it's not generally a common issue. Release magnets are really reliable for the most part, and are not the main culprit of release issues. In my opinion and in my experience, the problem a lot of times lies with release contacts. So when you push this button, it provides pressure, applies pressure to the actual contact, which I will show you momentarily here. And when these contacts are dirty, and a lot of times they are, especially with this model, okay, for some reason, I don't know why, but they get oxidated, they get dirty, and it's a 2-point contact, okay, where you have right here, here's the contact here. Okay, when you apply pressure to it, it just basically, there's in this particular one, there's 2 points here. It just, creates a short and releases it. And if there is a dirt here between these contacts, that release will not be taking place. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead, and this particular one is missing one more layer. Let me see if I can show you the one that has 3 layers. Okay, so this is a good example where you have all 3 layers. I'll put this away. All 3 layers in place. 1, 2, 3. So this is the top, and that's the bottom. Okay, like that. Or rather, let me just flip it over like that. So when you press this top contact to the middle one, that engages your light meter. Okay, that can also get dirty too, so be advised, if your light meter also does not show, it could be spacing between these two that needs to be cleaned. But in most cases, that's the next layer, or all 3 need to be engaged together. So what we have to do is basically disassemble this section here, remove the contact, take it all apart, all these 3 layers apart, and clean between them. And you won't believe how much dirt and dark matter comes out of it, okay? Because if you see here right now, it's nice and shiny on the top, but say if I remove this top layer, look at this dark matter here. Now this is oxidation, or some kind of a type of a dirt, okay? It's not corrosion, but it's some kind of a copper oxidation. So what happens is this prevents consistent release, and hence it will either not release at all, or would be intermittent, may not even show light meter. So this is another culprit that that causes issues with a release. Because like I said, I mean, there's a lot of possible scenarios to think about. So I'm trying to present the most obvious cases where things can be addressed by the customer or by the owner of the camera, and properly relayed to the facility that they plan on sending, or even if they're venturing into opening up and repairing the camera themselves. Okay, so as always, I want to make sure that this camera repair is not as simple as it may look. And I've seen many cameras previously that have been sent to me and to us that have been attempted to be repaired, and were returned back because it was to the degree where we could not really repair it. But again, take it with a grain of salt, and all I'm trying to do is just point you in a right direction as far as the troubleshooting the cause of the problem. All right, thank you for watching. This was a Canon A-1. Look for us in part 3, where we will discuss other cameras of the Canon series, perhaps FTB or a Canon A-1 program. All right, thank you for watching.